Deep within the caves and open plains of prehistoric Europe, tens of thousands of years ago, small bands of humans faced a problem that could have wiped out our entire species before it truly began. Imagine groups of no more than 20 or 30 people, isolated by vast wilderness, mountains, and rivers, with the nearest other humans possibly hundreds of miles away. In a world like this, how did early humans avoid the genetic disaster of inbreeding that could have doomed our ancestors to extinction? For decades, scientists assumed that early human populations were simply too small and too isolated to avoid genetic collapse. Small, cut-off groups should have suffered from what biologists call inbreeding depression, a dangerous accumulation of harmful genetic mutations that weaken a population's health, fertility, and survival over generations. Yet somehow, our ancestors thrived. The answer to how they did it turned out to be one of the most fascinating discoveries in modern archaeology.
In 2011, researchers examined ancient human remains at a site called Sunghir in Russia, dated to roughly 34,000 years ago. Here, archaeologists uncovered the burials of several individuals adorned with thousands of carefully crafted ivory beads, jewelry, and ceremonial tools, suggesting these were people of importance within their community. But the true breakthrough came when scientists extracted and analyzed their ancient DNA. What they found stunned the scientific world. Despite living in tiny, isolated bands, these individuals were not closely related to one another. There was no evidence of sibling mating, no first cousin unions, not even distant genetic overlap that would suggest a small, closed breeding population. Somehow, these early humans were reaching outward, forming connections with other groups scattered across vast distances, and deliberately avoiding genetic closeness. Somehow, these early humans were reaching outward, forming connections with other groups scattered across vast distances, and deliberately avoiding genetic closeness. This discovery pointed to something remarkable. Ancient humans had developed sophisticated social systems specifically designed to prevent inbreeding, long before anyone understood the concept of genetics. They didn't know about DNA or chromosomes, yet somehow, through instinct, culture, and social structure, they built networks that kept their gene pool healthy.
So how exactly did they do it? The answer lies in something anthropologists call exogamy, the practice of seeking partners from outside one's immediate family or local group. Early human societies appear to have developed strict rules, likely reinforced through taboo and tradition, dictating that individuals must find mates from other bands, sometimes located great distances away.
This wasn't simply a matter of preference. It required organized networks of communication and travel across the landscape. Groups would have needed ways to signal their presence to others, gather at agreed meeting points, and negotiate unions between different bands. Some researchers believe that seasonal gatherings, perhaps tied to migrations of animal herds or favorable hunting grounds, provided natural opportunities for different groups to meet, exchange goods, share stories, and arrange marriages between their young people. Evidence for this kind of long-distance social network can be found not just in DNA, but in the objects early humans left behind. Archaeologists have discovered ornamental beads, tools, and materials at ancient sites that originated hundreds of kilometers away, meaning these items were traded, carried, or exchanged between groups that had never permanently lived near one another. This tells us early humans were far more socially connected and mobile than we often imagine, forming vast, invisible webs of relationships stretching across entire regions.
Interestingly,
This system of seeking mates from distant groups may have also been embedded into early human storytelling and mythology. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer societies who still live in small, isolated bands similar to our ancient ancestors have found strikingly similar practices today. Groups such as certain indigenous Australian communities and various hunter-gatherer societies across Africa maintain intricate kinship systems that explicitly forbid marriage within certain family lines, sometimes stretching back multiple generations, while encouraging alliances with completely unrelated groups.
These kinship systems are often incredibly complex, involving specific naming conventions, clan divisions, and social categories that dictate precisely who someone can and cannot marry. While these rules might appear at first as simply cultural or spiritual traditions, many anthropologists now believe they likely evolved, at least in part, as an unconscious solution to the very real biological problem of genetic diversity and survival.
But humans were not the only early hominins facing this challenge. Our closest evolutionary relatives, the Neanderthals, appear to have struggled significantly with the very problem our ancestors managed to solve. Genetic analysis of Neanderthal remains, including a well-preserved skeleton found in a cave in the Altai Mountains of Siberia, revealed disturbing evidence of extremely low genetic diversity. Some Neanderthal populations show signs of repeated close relative mating, sometimes as close as half-siblings or an uncle and niece.
This lack of genetic diversity may have contributed significantly to the eventual extinction of Neanderthals roughly 40,000 years ago. Smaller, more isolated Neanderthal groups, without the same expansive social networks that early modern humans developed, appear to have been trapped in shrinking, genetically weakened populations, making them more vulnerable to disease, environmental changes, and ultimately extinction.
This stark contrast reveals something profound about what made modern humans so successful as a species. It wasn't simply intelligence or tool use, it was our extraordinary capacity for wide-reaching social cooperation. Early Homo sapiens built relationships far beyond their immediate family units, creating cultural and genetic safety nets that Neanderthals, restricted by smaller and more fragmented social structures, may have lacked. Some researchers even propose that this drive toward wide social connection is a defining evolutionary trait unique to our species. The instinct to explore, communicate, and form relationships with distant, unfamiliar groups may be deeply embedded in human psychology, an ancient survival mechanism passed down since our earliest ancestors first realized, perhaps through trial and painful error, that staying too close to home came with devastating consequences. Of course, this doesn't mean ancient humans consciously understood genetics or biology in any modern sense. It's far more likely that early taboos against incest developed gradually, through cultural evolution, perhaps reinforced by observing the negative outcomes, weaker offspring, higher rates of illness, or reduced fertility, that occurred within isolated groups practicing close relative unions. Over countless generations, societies that developed strong taboos against inbreeding alongside this slow, cultural trial-and-error process, layered over tens of thousands of years, eventually became deeply embedded into human social structures worldwide. Nearly every human culture, regardless of geography or historical period, developed some form of incest taboo, and nearly all developed customs encouraging marriage outside the immediate family or clan. This universal pattern across entirely unconnected societies strongly suggests it emerged from a shared ancient evolutionary pressure, rather than coincidence. The Sunghir discovery, along with dozens of subsequent genetic studies on ancient human remains across Europe, Asia, and beyond, continues to reinforce this picture. Time and again, researchers find evidence of surprisingly low relatedness between individuals living in the same small, prehistoric communities, hinting at complex, far-reaching social systems that stretched across the Ice Age landscape, connecting seemingly isolated groups into much larger, interconnected populations.
In many ways, our ancient ancestors were solving one of biology's greatest challenges long before science gave them the tools to understand why it mattered. Through instinct, tradition, and remarkable social ingenuity, early humans built invisible bridges across vast, dangerous landscapes, ensuring that our species would carry forward the genetic diversity necessary not just to survive, but eventually to thrive and spread across every corner of the globe.
The next time you consider how interconnected our modern world has become, remember that this instinct to reach outward, to connect with those beyond our immediate circle, is not a modern invention. It is a survival strategy written into human nature since the very beginning, one that quite literally shaped the course of our evolutionary success.